So I challenged myself to read every single book on my physical TBR in 2024. This is the third episode of me doing that. I'm starting this episode with 49 books left on my TBR, and honestly, the hardest thing for me to do is read the longest books I have. So I will be reading the 3 longest books on my physical TBR. So I have The Passage by Justin Cronin. This one is 776 pages. Paradise One by David Wellington. This one is 677 pages. And Under the Dome by Stephen King, which is 1,072 pages. So these are truly the scariest books that I have on my TBR, and they are ones I 100% will procrastinate if I don't do a video reading them. So here we are. It's taken me 12 years, but I am finally about a third into The Passage. This is the longest book, I think, if I go by the audiobook length. And like, I think that's kind of the fairest way to go, because the page size and like the font size matters. Size matters. So I just got to part 2, which is 208 pages in. These pages are so thin. They're not quite Bible pages, but they're pretty close. And then also the font is pretty tiny. So it's taken me a long time to get into this because of that. It's 200 pages, but like it's way more than 200 pages. And then also I've been bored. I've been really bored until the last chapter. I was considering DNFing. I was like, if we don't get like a chapter or 2 into part 2 and I'm like at all intrigued, I'm going to DNF. And then I got a little bit sucked in, so I'm gonna keep going. This is a genre blend. It is sci-fi and horror and fantasy. It says it's an epic and gripping tale of catastrophe and survival. So we're following Amy. Amy is kind of what the story revolves around. She's a 6-year-old. Her mom got involved in some stuff and had to leave her. So she left her at this nunnery. Is that plants? No, that's a nursery. And this nun got very attached to her. But then these 2 FBI agents kidnapped her. It's been interesting. So like that stuff was fine, but then I feel like there was just a lot of not much going on, and we weren't really into the sci-fi, we weren't into the horror, we weren't into the fantasy. It was all just very, very boring setup. Too many words. We don't need this many words. Very like Stephen King-esque in that way. But we know that there's a government experiment going on because we are aware of some other characters that have been taken for it. Special Agent Brad Walgast is one of the 2 that are sent to kidnap her from the nun place, and he also gets very attached to her, so then he helps her kind of escape the situation because he doesn't want her to go through what all of these other people are going through within this experiment. So it says that he secures her escape but can't stop civilization's collapse. And then there's some more stuff in the back that hasn't even happened at this part, but I think it's about to. So the very end of part 1, we got to the kind of, I guess, really, I think it was like the catalyst of what the rest of the book is going to be. So I will tell you, the back is that Amy walks alone across miles and decades into a future dark with violence and despair. And she's filled with the mysterious and terrifying knowledge that only she has the power to save the ruined world. So like that, she's not by herself yet. She is still with Wolgast, and they are escaping this experiment situation. This is the first in a trilogy. Is this called the City of Mirrors trilogy, or is that just a sticker for something else? I think this is ridiculously too long. I didn't need a lot of this stuff that happened up until this point. Like, I mean, I get obviously certain things, but it was too wordy. It was not really necessary. I still have so much of the book to go. And like, I don't know what it is. The problem is that there are some very long books that I really like. And then there are others that are just like the length is what makes me not like it. And it's really hard because this is the start of a trilogy. So like, it's not just the things that are happening in this book. It has to set up things for like everything else. But it's just a little boring for me. But that last chapter was very interesting. So we'll see. I'm not committing to reading the rest of this book because like there's been so many times where I'm like I don't care, but I'm more invested now than I was previously. So it's always a good sign. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm hoping to get through the second third of it today, which would put me at part 7 and almost 500 pages in. I'm kind of just dedicating today to reading now, so hopefully that will work. This book is so intimidating to me. I can't do this anymore. I made it 304 pages in, which is 15 hours into the audiobook. Usually 300 pages is 9 hours. Like, he has a lot of words and he's not saying a lot with them, which is one of my least favorite things. I get bored so easily when that happens. So I am in part 4, I think, and part 1 and 2 were the same characters, and then part 3 was a different character, and then part 4 was a different situation. I mean, they're all within this apocalypse zombie, well, nope, it's not zombies, vampire situation, and everyone's just trying to survive, and I get it, but I don't need to have this much of a book about that. And this is the first in a trilogy, and I just truly can't do it. I think the story itself is fine, and I'm like vaguely interested in it, but with everything else, it's just not working for me. I don't like the writing style. Bowser decided right now is when he needs water. I don't like how slow everything is moving. I don't like that we're not following the same people every time. Like, there's 2 other things that we just learned about, and the synopsis only talks about Amy, and like I want to love this book because a lot of people do, but I just cannot. Like, if I'm not wanting to read because I don't want to pick this book and this is the book I need to be reading, like, I should not be reading it anymore. So 304 pages in, and this one is a DNF. This one is the longest book on my shelves. So next up is Paradise 1. This looks significantly longer, but this one is the shortest one I'm reading for this video. The thing is, it is 675 pages, but the audiobook is only 22 hours because it actually has like fairly big font in this one. I do have another bookmark in here so I know where 2/3 of the book is so that I can update you, because I'm listening to this on Audible and they don't tell you percentages or anything. This one I'm actually really enjoying. I am 225 pages in. I just got to chapter 50, and we are following 3 different characters who are going to try to make contact with a planet that has been like the first deep space colonized planet, but they lost contact. So our main character, Petrova, is a Nepo baby, and nobody likes her. People don't really like her being in the position she's in because they're like, you don't deserve this. You only got this because of your mom. And she's trying to prove herself, and she takes it a little too far and ends up messing up something she didn't realize was going on. So they were like, actually, we're taking you off of all of this because we can't trust your judgment. And to do that, they're sending her to this planet, Paradise 1. And she is going to check on the planet, but also her mom is there, who has recently retired. Sorry if you're shaking. Bowser really does not want me to talk to you. So she goes, and she is one of 3 people on this ship, and they are being put into like sleep coma, like they're like frozen for 80 days or something, which feels not that long, so I don't know why they need to be frozen, but whatever. Probably because we didn't need to read that in the book. Petrova is there, and then Dr. Zhang is the doctor that is sent, and he is kind of standoffish at the very beginning, and things are just kind of weird with him. And then there's the pilot, who happens to have a previous like week-long very intense relationship with Petrova, and then they like immediately lost contact and haven't had anything to do with each other for like a year, like years and years. So they go to sleep, and they are woken up and they are under attack. So then they are trying to figure out a plan, figure out who's attacking them and what is going on. There's another ship that is hitting them with something, and if they don't figure this out, they are not going to make it. They know that other people are coming for them. There's also some AI situations in here. So there's AI that runs the ship, and then there's also like a little mini AI robot thing that's like watching the main AI, and he's funny. I'm liking the little comments from the one that can like move around. He can build himself new bodies and stuff. He's really there to do like the hands-on like grunt work. So yeah, so far so good. I have seen that the pacing on this one is a little off. I do think that like we probably don't need this much left with the book, but as of right now, I'm pretty invested in what's going on and I'm really liking everything. We just started to get more information on the ship that is attacking them, and I'm very intrigued on what is going to happen with that. And this is proof that just because a book is long doesn't mean I'm going to dislike it, because I was like, am I not liking The Passage just because it's long and I'm aware that it's long? But I'm flying through this one. This one is shorter, but still, I usually read books that are 350 pages on average, and like the audiobook is 12 hours, like at the longest. Well, not really at the longest, but like the average longer book for me is like a 12-hour audiobook, which just comes with reading horror and thriller books in general. But this one is sci-fi horror, which I think is a lot of fun. There obviously was some like sci-fi stuff and some horror with the vampires in the last one, but it was definitely more dystopian, which I think I'm learning is not really my thing. So even if I didn't finish a book, it's still like teaching me something. Not that I read books to be taught things. I mean, sometimes, but not always. Don't have a reading update, but I just got something in the mail that I wanted to share with you. This is huge. So we're gonna open this. The publisher sent this to me, and it is the sequel to The Butcher and the Wren, which I enjoyed. I read it when it came out and I gave it 4 stars. I knew that it was gonna be a series, but I didn't realize this one was coming out soon. So we're gonna open it. Welcome to your Dr. Wren Mueller Go bag. This comes out on September 17th. Okay, so this will be out whenever you see this video. This is a whole backpack. What? Smells interesting. And then here is the book. Okay, so there's 6 things with it. One is a water bottle. The backpack is one of them. Bowser's mid-haircut. If you can see him, don't look at him. You're embarrassing me. There's a little flashlight. Ah! I just dropped band-aids everywhere. A first aid kit. Bowser, why are you heavy breathing on me? You want to see too? We have a hat, a beanie, and then a portable charger. So it says a portable charger to stay connected, first aid kit for any scrapes, water bottle for hydration, beanie to stay warm, flashlight for the forest, and a backpack to carry the essentials. And they're all of Wren's on the go essentials for the book. Very cool. Thank you to Zando Projects, which is the publisher, and the author for sending me this. This is actually my first like box of things that I have gotten. I'm very excited to read The Butcher Game. So I just want to share that with you. I am now 460 pages into Paradise 1, and I am still really liking this. I do think it didn't need to necessarily be this many pages, especially in the second quarter of it. I think that there's been a little bit of repetition that isn't absolutely necessary, but I'm also not bothered by it. I am enjoying the investigation stuff that is going on. So without like telling you too much, they are going to investigate this colony, and they are struggling to get on to the planet, and there are obstacles in the forms of other ships that are keeping them from doing so. So some of that has involved them interacting with other ships in different ways, and I think that some of that has been a little repetitive, but I think the stuff that is going on is really intriguing to me, because the thing is, we're not like battling space. We're not battling aliens and stuff like that. And I think my issue with like sci-fi that I've read that's set in space before is like watching the gunfights between humans and aliens, and I'm like, I don't care about this. But that is not really happening in here in any sort of way like that. I really like investigative, more thought provoking things in my sci-fi. I don't want it to be like I have to like solve things and do math or something, but I think the way that this story is told is working for me. At this point, this book is already longer than books that I typically read, but I'm not like, wow, I wish this was over. I can't believe I'm still reading this dumb book because it's taking forever. That's how I was feeling about The Passage, which is why I DNF'd it. And I am enjoying the aspects of horror that are in here as well. So far so good. It's feeling like a 4-star read for me, which I was really, really, really hoping that I was going to like something in this video. I was scared that I was going to just think if everything was too long and not want to read it anymore. But we at least have one win, unless the end of this is atrocious. Which, like, honestly, even if it is, I've had a good time up until this point, and that's really what matters. Like, I want to enjoy the whole thing. I don't want to just like the end and make that want me to read the next story. I want to enjoy the whole thing. This does have a sequel. I don't know if it's a trilogy, but I'm really happy. I'm still enjoying this a lot. I have finished Paradise 1. I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I ended up really enjoying it. I do think that my issue with this book is the length. I think there's just a bit too many very repetitive scenes, and I understand to an extent why they happened, but I think that maybe we could have gotten that information in a different way. And there was an attempt at making things a little bit more unique, and I did appreciate that, but this was just too long, which is the theme of this video. Long books are too long. The thing is, even though there was some repetition and I think things could have been cut out, it didn't really like hurt my enjoyment of the story at all. I wish that this would have been a little bit creepier. I think that would have made me like it even more. I don't know if I'm going to read the next one. I'm not opposed to it, but also it didn't leave me like wanting to run to pick up the next one. It tried to, because it ends fairly abruptly where like you need to know what's going on to continue the story, to like figure out what this situation is. But I'm just not that kind of reader. So like I'm interested, but I don't like need to pick it up immediately. I'm very glad that I read this. This honestly could have been one that would have just been on my shelves, and then I would have been like, I don't feel like reading this. Like, it's long. I don't know if it's really gonna be my thing, so I'll just get rid of it. So very glad that I ended up picking this one up. So a good time. I would recommend this if you like sci-fi like on its own, and then also like horror. If you are just a horror reader, I wouldn't specifically say to go read this right now, because it definitely feels like sci-fi that has horror in it. I think with genre blends, there's usually one genre that's a little bit more prominent, and I feel like in this one it's definitely sci-fi, which I do still really love. So this worked for me. Glad I read it. Now I'm so scared for Under the Dome, but it's time. I don't like long books. It's too long. I have been reading Under the Dome, and really it's only been 3 days of me reading it, which is fine because I wanted to read it slower. I'm doing a buddy read of it. So I am 345 pages in, which is 30%, and I think that this book could be half the length and it could say the same things. I think that the concept of this is interesting, and the problem is, part of me is like so close to wanting to DNF, but it's just like just over like my enjoyment level. Like if there was a scale of me DNFing books, like if my enjoyment level went under like this amount, then I would DNF. It's like just over the like the ledge. So I'm still reading it, and I just feel like there are a lot of things that are going on that could just be cut in half. Some of it's not necessary. Some of it, his sentences could be cut in half. Here's the thing. Part of me is a Stephen King hater. I think his books are almost always too long. One of his books is one of my least favorite books that I've ever read, but I've given his books 5 stars as well. I don't feel like finding it, but 11/22/63 is one of my favorite books, and then I also really love The Institute, which are both 2 of his sci-fi books. So I was thinking that this one could work really well for me because it is sci-fi. These people live in this town, and then magically this dome pops up over them and they cannot get through it. There's been various attempts at doing that, and it doesn't go well in any circumstance. I also think that there are way too many characters in this book, and I think it's keeping me from being connected to anything. I think that the plot is interesting enough, and I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on behind everything. Like, where did this dome come from? Why is it so strong? Like, why is nobody able to get through it? They have, obviously, like, this is a crisis situation, so they have tons of different people, like military forces and stuff like that, very smart people trying to figure this out and get this town out, because obviously after a certain point, like, they will run out of food, they will run out of supplies. They have one doctor, and like, he's not really trained in everything that they need, so like, it's all interesting in that aspect, but it's so long. It's too long. And like, it's not too long because I'm like, wow, I wish this was shorter, because it's taking a long time. Like, it feels too long. Like, a lot of stuff doesn't feel necessary in the book itself. That being said, it feels like 3 stars at the moment. I wish I had more positive feelings. They are like somewhat positive but somewhat negative, so I guess I'm feeling very neutral about this book, but very, very, very slightly like positive because I want to know what's going on. I'm not invested in any of the characters, and there are some characters that you're supposed to like truly hate. Like, they're bad, but I'm not invested in anything enough to really like feel anything towards the really bad characters either. So I don't know. I think that it could start to get better for me. I've heard that the middle part is kind of slow though, so I am scared about that. So I'll talk to you in a couple days once I get to roughly 2/3 into the book. I'm doing 15% a day, which is a lot. At 3 times speed for the audiobook, it's an hour and 45 minutes. I'm kind of exhausted from reading this book, which is not ideal, but we're gonna keep going. I have made it 442 pages into this book, and I'm sorry I can't do it anymore. I can't. I think that it is so boring. It's so disappointing because I have really enjoyed his more sci-fi leaning books, but there are too many characters in this for me to be invested in anything, and nothing has happened. Honestly, I feel like everything that has happened up to this point could have been maybe 75 pages. Like, truly not much has happened, and I don't understand how that is the case. 75 pages might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but like, I don't think it's necessary, and the stuff that's happening in the plot right now is not very fast moving, and it's not something that I want to read about. I understand that men and people in charge in situations like this are going to be awful, and I just don't want to read something like that when I feel like nothing else is happening. I really wanted this to be more about the investigating of the dome that has magically appeared, and there's like a tiny bit of that, and that stuff is interesting, but other than that, I don't care about anything that's going on. So another book to add to my very mixed history with Stephen King. Once again, I've had some 5 stars, I've had some 1 stars. Like, I don't know how I feel about him as an author, but it is now off of my TBR. I can take out my bookmark and move on with my reading. But that does bring us to the end of this video. It didn't go very well. I had 2 DNFs pretty far into the book, like longer than the average length of normal books that I read, but I did get a 4 star with Paradise 1, so I'm very excited about that. Here's the situation though. I started with 49 books on my TBR, and reading these 3 books only does bring me down to 46. But I've read 2 other books off of my physical TBR while working on this video, which takes me down to 44. But I've actually added 10 books to my TBR. So now I have 54 books. And like, I don't regret it in general, but like, for the purpose of this video series, I'm a little scared for myself because we have October, November, and December left. Excuse me, I'm really scared. I did get a box from Book of the Month with 4 books in it. I got an Aardvark box with 2 books. I got some other books by authors that I have read and enjoyed before, so this feels acceptable to me. And then I was sent the Butcher game. So I do have specific plans to read at least 10 of the books on my physical TBR, like in specific videos, but that still leaves me with a lot of books to read in this video series. I will obviously be trying to fit other ones into planned content that I have. I have to plan that content first. But I'm so glad that I got the longest books off of my TBR, because that obviously takes the longest amount of time to get through. So it's just harder for me to read a really long book in a video. It kind of feels like it drags me down, especially if I'm not liking it. So I've read every sequel on my shelves. I read books picked with random prompts. I've read the longest books on my TBR. I don't want to make any promises, but I think in October I might be trying to read all the horror books from my shelves. I don't know how many that is though, so like maybe that's a big commitment. But like maybe something like that. And then I think in November I plan on doing like a random spinner wheel to pick all of my books. And then December is cram time. So that is a little bit of my plan moving forward with this. It's kind of a scary time because that's a lot of books that I have left. I really need to not buy any more books. So I need to hurry up and get back to reading. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in this video. If you've made it to the end and want to leave me an emoji to say you were here, you can leave me a ruler for long books. Make sure you stick around so you don't miss the rest of the episodes in this series. So I hope to see you soon. Bye.